Hi, I'm Scott Orr, and I'm the host of a podcast called Other Record Labels, where I interview record labels and talk about the art and culture of running a record label. And today I want to talk about planning your first release or planning a release on a label, especially if this is your first release and you're in the process of starting a record label or you've just begun a record label. And such an exciting process. And this video talking about preparing your first release is part of this 31-day series that I'm doing as a way to help you guide through the process of starting a record label. And you can get this tip that I'm going to talk about today, as well as all the previous tips and the future tips, at otherrecordlabels.com/checklist. I put together this little checklist for you that hopefully will help guide you along this process. I've spoken to a few labels who have or people who are dreaming about starting a record label. I'm not just talking, there have been some like high school and college age younger people, but also even like older people who are in a second or third phase of life who have always dreamed about doing this and are finally starting a record label. So it's very exciting. When we're talking about our first release, the first thing we want to do is pick a release date. And we're going to talk about how to pick a release date in the next episode. But when we're picking a release date, we want to make sure that we identify this release date and we stick with this release date, and everything is working towards that release date, and make sure you pick it far off in the distance. The other thing we want to do is we want to pick our formats too. So we want to talk with the artist ahead of time and say, is this just a digital? Do we have the money to do vinyl? Do we have the money to do a cassette or a CD? Do we have the audience to do CDs? Not everybody does CDs anymore. Is it relevant to do CDs? You might want to do vinyl, but do you have the capabilities of pressing vinyl? And can we afford vinyl? Do we have the capabilities to ship vinyl to people? All of these things, you want to sit down with the artist. We want to talk about when do they want the record to come out? What formats do they want the record to come on? How much, what is our budget that we're working with? And then we want to talk about creating a back schedule for each format. So there's three things that I've mentioned so far: picking a release date, choosing the format, and then creating a work back schedule. Now, don't worry, we're going to talk about work back schedules in a future episode, and I'm going to break that out, but that's really important. These three things you want to kind of get all together and sit down with the band and chat through this, and I think it's going to be really helpful. We're going to break into work back schedules and how to pick a release date in the next couple of episodes, but really want you to highlight picking a release date, choosing the format, and then creating a schedule to make all of this happen, hashing out all these details about the release and some of the expectations that the artist might have when it comes to music videos or album artwork. You see, you might pick a release date, and then the artist says, I actually want somebody to paint the artwork. And then you realize, well, that's going to take like 3 months for us to go back and forth. Or maybe they want to do vinyl, but we're going to need to do a Kickstarter in order to fund the vinyl process. And so we need like a good 3 or 4 months to run that campaign. And then it's going to take 3 or 4 months to press the vinyl. So when you're picking a release date, you want to make sure you allow for all of that time. But first of all, sit down with the artist and figure out what their expectations are for this release. I hope you found this helpful. Download our checklist that has 31 different tips for starting a record label at otherrecordlabels.com/checklist. Thanks for watching.